Okay, we are live.
All right. So I guess we'll get it started for a bit. So whenever you're ready.
Yeah, what's good? My name is Khalil. What's going on?
All right, all right. So yo, Khalil, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. You?
I'm doing all right. And for everyone tapping in right now, hello everyone. This is Josh, also known as Yashu. We're on episode 75 of the TLOY Talks podcast, live at 1990 Studios and all that. So we have Khalil, who's an artist, rapper, who has done like a lot of like shows like in the past. Is affiliated with NLMG, who we've had on before, the New Legends music group and all that. He's set to release a project in the next coming days or so. So definitely tap in like whenever you can and all that, and has a lot of like good music on the way as well too, like from past releases with Call Me Doing and with everything else too. So yeah, Khalil, like I've been like checking out like the music as well, and it's been good so far, man. And like we actually interacted like a while back at this show in Mississauga, like I think a couple years back and all that. And yeah, just seeing that performance was like very interesting too, because you were also like in a collective as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, sorry, Mississauga, was that it was like an eternal event or something like that? It was like
Uh,
it's kind of like a lounge type of bar type of spot.
yeah, like Ranko
Yeah,
Fly up
yeah,
from there. Like who else? A lot of people like Shani Glow, like those folks, like they've performed as well. And yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
yeah, like that was like a good vibe as well too. Yeah, that was like a
Yeah,
couple
it
years
was.
back, so it's like a whole different
Yeah,
experience in a way and all that. So
100%. Yeah, no, so I've been, trying to do as many shows and like, step up in terms of our levels and shows in terms of like, get to the next level where we're on bigger stages or myself where I'm on bigger stages and kind of different crowds. For me when I didn't start performing until July of 2021, I think. We're in 2024 now. That was the first time I ever went out. I actually went to an NLG payback showcase back when it was at like Flame Lounge on like I think it was like Heel and like I can't remember somewhere. But yeah, so and then from there I've just like been performing the open mics, all that type of stuff. And then, since we've done like just the other night we were in London, we opened for LB Spiffy. This Saturday we're back in London opening up for Young Tory. We got D12 that we're opening up for in March, and I think back on tour with Roni in April. We were on tour with him in Kingston, Ottawa, Montreal in November. So just like getting to those bigger stages, interacting with people and kind of keep pushing forward and doing our thing and having fun most and foremost. So
yeah, no, 100% too. And we'll definitely get more onto that right now. So I actually want to get like started right now. So you grew up in Georgetown. So growing up there, what was like the environment like growing up? And would you say your childhood was like a great experience, or would it be like very different?
uh yeah, so growing up there, I think, uh it's a good place to live in terms of, what's happening. Um, you know, it's not necessarily a dangerous place at all. There's no, people are living their lives well. But for me, it's a smaller town, and once you kind of get to the outskirts of the GTA, the demographic of people start to change, and the kind of the way people start to think becomes very similar. So when you get that lack of diversity, for a kid of color, it becomes a little bit of a different experience living there. So that's kind of a lot what I get into about my music. So living in Georgetown, it was all right. We had our fun. We did our dumb things when we got older. Small town, you can't like for instance, you can't even get out of the town really by like GO train or public transit. You gotta like drive out, and then like, if you want to go to the movies or some shit like that, like when we were back in high school and stuff like that. So, it's an okay place. There's a lot of like drama and stuff. It's kind of definitely somewhere where I wouldn't want to like grow up, raise my kids if my kid was any sort of showed any sort of like melanin in their skin realistically. But yeah, it's not too bad. But I think the video kind of cut out there for a sec.
Oh, I think yeah, like I think maybe it was just like some something that might have happened on my end for a bit too, but I think it should be fine. But
Okay, yeah, don't worry.
yeah, no worries.
But yeah, just growing up, though, like with kind of answering the question, I guess in a superficial way, it was all right. But looking back on it, now that I'm like, I'm older, I went away to school and I learned some things about myself. I look back and I'm like, damn, like there's a lot of things about that place that was kind of like messed up, or like the way people who were considered my friends treated me just because I look different. But at the same time, that's on my mom's side of the family, that's like seventh generation or something there. So it's like I'm the seventh generation in that town. So it's like, at the same time, there's family roots to it, there's heritage there. There's a lot of things that have been established in terms of my family there. So there's always going to be a connection. There's obviously been good times. That's where I met most of my friends, had a lot of my first experiences in terms of like, playing on sports teams and like winning and stuff like that, and being able to represent something from a larger whole. So it's not all negative. But yeah, as an overall, it was, mediocre, I guess, for, depending on how you look at it. For me as a kid of color, looking back, it was mediocre.
For sure, man. And I know like Georgetown, PO, like within the same area too. Like there has been like a buzzing music scene since the 2000s and all that. With people like Party Next Door, like Junior T, Spitty, some people from
Yeah.
NLMG like WW like Lowry and all that, and like Connoisseur Ghosts and Green Beans and all that, and like Villa and like a lot of like dope artists from there and all that. And to even like speak more about that, was it like a bigger like music scene back then, or is it like much bigger now with like the amount of artists like coming out there and all that?
I would, it's kind of a hard question because like Georgetown is like, it's small in the scope of all those towns and cities around it, right? Brampton's like way bigger, Mississauga's obviously way bigger, even Milton's a lot bigger, and Burlington is like a lot bigger. Um, so Oakville and stuff. So I know that there's been a music scene happening there. I haven't been overly tapped in with it like directly with the people who are like kind of underground. Like, you just named up a whole bunch of people because you know that like they've been around and you've done interviews with them or you've seen them, so you've connected with them. But in terms of the smaller people, I couldn't really give you too much of a gauge there. But I do know that there are people that I went to high school with. There's somebody named Tommy Belmont. He's part of a group. I can't remember the name what the group is now, but he's a hip hop artist. He used to be in a band back in like high school and like make rock tracks and stuff like that. And then there's another guy named Nolan who was like a yeah, he was a producer, but he did more like EDM style stuff. So I would say that, then we get to larger scale like Brampton, like talking about Beans and Ghost and Lowry and Spitty, Villa, Party Next Door, those guys. Yeah, like the scene is getting bigger. There's more demand, there's more people coming out. There's more presence, and as we have more representation, that's just going to continue to grow. Um, and that's something I'm trying to help with because I do believe like music is like an art form. It's a self of expression, and there's lots of people that can utilize that for their own stories, and there's always something that someone can connect to, and the more that you can get people to share those experiences and those feelings, the more of a community that you can create and maybe help remove some of the things like barriers and stuff that like people like myself face growing up in like towns. There's not a lot of people that look like them, right? So
Yeah.
definitely it's getting bigger, 100%.
For sure, man. And getting back onto your story for a bit, like what was like your first like introduction to music, and who did you like grow up like listening to like for a bit too?
Yeah, like I don't know if I could give you an exact like when my first introduction to music was. I think there was just always kind of music around. I remember going to my Mima's house when I was a kid. There was always just calypso playing. And then when I my whenever I was in the car with my dad, he was generally listening to music, and same thing with my mom. She was generally listening to music. I think I had different musical influences when I was a kid because my dukes tried to keep it relatively PG for me at a young age. So my mom would listen to people um James Blunt and Josh Grogan and kind of more like poppy type of music like today and stuff. She listens to like Dan and Shay and stuff like that. Or my dad but then they would listen to people like Lenny Kravitz and stuff too together. And then my dad would listen to more of the hip hop and R&B stuff. I remember like, when I was like 10, like 9 or 10 years old, the first time I ever really saw him listening to rap, he was playing the Rolling Papers album by Wiz Khalifa after I got off of like a sports event or something like that. And then like Usher and stuff like that, kind of the old guys, Biggie and Pac, but as much within reason. So, kind of just a well-rounded version of probably more poppy and then hip hop based music, which is kind of why I think one of the things I noticed big for me is that music that I enjoy, like recreationally, tends to usually have some sort of like drum pattern in it. I find music without drum patterns I don't connect with as well. So that's probably definitely comes from that influence of listening to more like rap, hip hop, R&B, and like pop based stuff as a young kid. Didn't listen to too much rock and stuff growing up.
Oh, true. And
Yeah.
even within that whole like formation of getting into music, so how did you even like get into that aspect of like rapping and like making music in that sense?
Yeah, so music's always been part of my life. Like I always say, like I don't know if I would be where I am or even here if I didn't have music. It's kind of, you know, sad as that kind of sounds, but really just I started kind of getting these feelings and thoughts, I guess you could say, in like late high school that I wanted to talk about something, but I didn't really have it. Like I was, I guess, scared of the judgment. I didn't really have a way to do it. I didn't know how to start. So, I had my music classes. I took like a guitar class in grade 10 and like grade 7 and 8. I played like the saxophone a little, but I didn't have anything too musically, foundational. Uh, and I remember one day I tried to make a beat on like GarageBand, and I made it, and I accidentally deleted the whole thing, and then I couldn't get it back. So I was like, damn, like fuck this. I just kind of closed my laptop, and then I kept having those feelings throughout my first couple of years of university. And I just remember one day I was like house sitting for my grandparents, and I was like, yo, fuck this. Like I'm gonna do it. I just started writing. So I was just listening to like instrumental versions of songs that I liked, and even just listening to songs that I like with the vocals over, and just like trying to write because it was familiar. And that's just kind of how it started. I was just like, I feel like I have something to talk about. I feel like this would be good for me to talk about, and that was about the end of second year, so it would have been 2017, like summertime, like to like April, Mayish time. Um, and that's kind of when that started happening. I started writing. And yeah, it's kind of just gone on from there.
True. And usually with like a lot of artists like on the platform and other people I've spoken with, like they usually like get into music, from like family and all that, or like they might have had like family that made music or people that were like in the choir and all that. So I don't know if you
Yeah.
had like a musical background in history with like family like performing or making music, and what inspired you to even like become like a rapper and artist in a way.
I think just artistry is more kind of the better term for being in my family. My mom, she played saxophone in high school, sorry, university, and then she's actually like an artist. Like she went to school for graphic design, and she had her own little like business for a bit. And when I was a kid, and yeah, so all the paintings in my house and everything are like, done by my mom and everything. So, and then like, so for me, there's always been I remember like, I'd be like hanging out with my grandmother and stuff as a kid, and she would like bring out like crafts and stuff to paint and stuff like that. Or my mom would like take me to places like Glazed Expressions and shit and do like pottery, like stuff, designs and stuff. So I just kind of always been around art, but for me, I wasn't too like good with like the hand skills, but I always was listening to music. So for me, I think that's kind of what influenced me. It was just like, I want to do something artistic, and this is what I kind of feel like is my version of art that I can like be good at. And then also when it comes to like I want to say something, it was like okay, like this is the better outlet because I can like actually use my words to describe what I'm thinking or like what's going on in my head or like what I'm seeing around me in the world. So I think that's kind of what really influenced it. There was, like I said, there wasn't like I didn't have like not really anybody in my life who like really was serious about music or played music in an open sense, whereas I would sit there. I mean, my grandmother used to play piano and stuff, and she tried to teach me when I was a kid, but I was like short attention span, didn't really care too much. But so but yeah, really just came from kind of the self-motivation. I think that internal artistry within my blood from the artistic side of my family that was just kind of floating there. So
No, 100%, man. And in
yeah,
terms of like influences and all that, like I know you said that you haven't like really like listened as much like on your end, but like more so within the environments around you too. But like when talking about like artistry, like in a way and all that, like within the start of your own sound, like who would you say were
yeah.
like your main like influences, like when it comes to your sound and your styling, and who would you like to work with like someday, like musically and all that?
Yeah, so Influence is the very first rapper that I got super into, you know. Um, Eminem, 100%. I feel like even though I didn't grow up like him, I felt like I related to him because he felt kind of like the outsider in the situation, being the white guy 8 Mile around the rap scene. So, I kind of felt similar to that. I was like the token black guy and a whole bunch of like let's see white people. So, that kind of I felt like I linked onto that, and then like the emotional stuff that you talked about, or like relationships and stuff. I always felt like I had like a disconnect when I was trying to like make connections with people. So like for me, like Eminem was one of the first ones. Plus, then he's a lyrical genius, and he's got his OG tracks that just are banging. So and then the next one I would say I listened to a lot of Chris Brown when I was a kid. And I think that's kind of helped, apparently his dance moves didn't rub off on me, but that is what it is. But I'm hoping that what I felt is some of the melodies and stuff that I can come up with, I think probably definitely come from there because listening to someone who's such a genius at making music and like quality hits year after year after year for such a long period of time, I think that's definitely something when I first started listening to like music on my own times, like, Chris Brown was one of the first people I got into. And then obviously being from the city, Drake, he's somebody I look up to. Anybody from most people know his catalog, so I don't need to get into it too much, but just, he was one of the first ones that really took a major hold. And, so for me, I have to show that respect of influence, right? And then late, like not late, but like mid high school time, the two next artists that really kind of came into fruition for me were Logic and Kevin Gates. I really started listening to them a lot, and back before Logic even released his Under Pressure album, his debut studio album, listening to like Finding Forever Days and stuff like that, like 9 to 5 and Ballin' and Young Jedi and like All I Do and like all those tracks and just like yeah, he was definitely when it comes to the lyricism and trying to make that hard hitting punchlines and those bars that just make you think and stuff and just like trying to rap as fast as you can. Definitely like that's a huge influence from Logic. I'm going back and studying like how he puts words together. I still do it on a constant basis. So yeah, he's a big one for me. Pardon me. And then I said Kevin Gates. Yeah, Kevin Gates just kind of give me that like how do I say it? He has like that kind of that raw edge to him. That raspiness in his voice where it kind of feels like it's and he's melodic at the same time. So I feel like, he was an influence in terms of more or less sound for me. Like and not necessarily like style what he's talking about type of stuff, but like a sound. Like he had a good sound that, is replayable and stuff like that. And then I think the most probably important and the most current and probably the longest standing that will continue to stand will be J. Cole. Shout out to Cole. Um, he yeah, man, I don't even really have words for it. Just every single time I hear a track from that guy, it's like, yo, like I don't know. So I study his like me. I don't even listen to his music anymore, fam. I just study it. Like it's just like it's we going back and like like why did that work? Like how did he put that together? Like listening to like his freestyle on LA Leakers and just like going back to the off season album and like listening back to certain tracks like the Climb Back and stuff like that. And just like, how did he put this together? And just like, going back to older albums and stuff and just breaking them down and trying to like figure out like why is it so great? Why is it like this every single time? So he's definitely like one of the biggest ones that, has me influenced and got me, trying to better myself. So
Yeah, no, 100%. And like what I could say about like J. Cole, Drake, Kevin Gates, like I feel like they have a style like that's unique within their own and all that too. Like I know of J. Cole, like with a lot of his albums, they're like pretty much like concept projects that he does like over time and all that in the whole start within his age and all that until now. So like his last album, I think the off season, like I know like he was like experimenting with like a lot of stuff too, with like dealing with the idea of COVID, dealing with the idea of like growing older and all that, like reflecting on like KOD and all that. And I know like he brings like a lot of like unique characters to like the kill character as well too. That was on KOD. Like that was an amazing thing to see with Kevin Gates. I feel like he is like very like raw within like his lyricism and all that, and just even with the styling of his own sound and all that too, because he reflects on like a lot of things and it's like very like unfiltered with songs from like his past mixtapes to like now and all that, where he's experimenting with life, religion, therapy. Like it's good to see, and like even with Drake too. I mean, for all the dogs too. Like I feel like with every project that he has, it kind of like changes over time from like connecting with fans, like depending on their age group and all that. And I know like he has had some songs that are more reflected with the youth nowadays, but then he'll have moments where it's like a moment of clarity where he's like speaking about life and everything like that too. So it's amazing to see.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. Like that's one thing I always say about Drake is he's got when it comes to the business side of things, the guy is on point. He knows what he's doing. And if you take a look at a Drake album, really any Drake album, you can break it down into the songs that are meant for like the top 40, but like that mom's gonna listen to in the car with their kids. He's got his top 40 songs that are like more like the club bangers that will be there for a couple weeks, and then he's got the rest of the project that's really meant for that core audience, right? And it's really smart the way he does it. So, but yeah, definitely those influences have come around and been present in the way I write and like what I'm thinking when I'm trying to write stuff down and how to articulate my own stories and stuff like that.
Sure, 100%. And to even get more onto the whole like creative process, right now, so like, what's your creative process like when making music, and what would like a day in the studio be like for you? No way.
Yeah, it's kind of messy actually, but I guess the biggest thing for me is, it depends on where I am kind of. One thing I will say is time is the best prescription. So, I sometimes I go a period of time without writing because just I have to live life a little bit. But in terms of my creative process, usually what it comes up with is I usually come up with like a reference bar that will give me my melody. So I'll kind of start like humming something out and like kind of get like my syllables and my flow pattern, and then I will try to write a bar to it. And sometimes I don't even I just write a bar. Like it has zero value to what I want to talk about or anything. It's just for structure purposes. And then I start filling in the notes with words and start just kind of trying to write about something. So what happens is if I'm trying to write about something specifically, then I'm like sometimes I even write like a point form, like kind of jot down, but in general, I'll start writing about that thing specifically, and I'll be writing a lot slower. It's a lot more of a conscious process. Sometimes it takes a couple days. So like it's not like a sit down and get it done in 30 minutes. But then if I'm writing like more, and that's more for like when I'm in my project mode, like when I'm trying to write something with because there's a start to an end of that song or start to an end to the project, and this song's got to filter into this song. It's got to make sense, right? And so, but if I'm writing more loosely, more casually, let's say it's like a feature and I'm just kind of going off what the next person said, or it's like in the studio and it's just like, somebody plays a beat, it's like, write to this. It's more focused on like, hey, how can I make this sound good? What words are going to sound good with this beat? If I go approach it again, like I'll do the same flow pattern thing to start get my flow. And I'm not really focusing on necessarily what I'm saying. And the reason I'm able to get to that point is because I recognize I'm a lyrical based artist. So anything I do and like innately I want to make it lyrical. So I'm always trying to play with flow patterns and intrabar rhymes. So it's gonna come out that way, regardless of what I'm talking about. So yeah, and then I just kind of look more for the vibe. So for instance, if the last time I was at the studio was for this upcoming EP, and I actually what how the whole process went down is I had a conversation with an individual at the time, and it sparked some things in my life that brought up, I guess, emotions from the past and things that I thought I had dealt with that I hadn't. And I wrote out 3 tracks to it. No beat, no nothing. And then when I went back and I kind of started to tailor it, and then I found reference beats on YouTube or beats from songs to try to create an idea of the sound. And then I recorded voice notes on my phone and I sent it to my producer. Shout out Hibernation, the rapper, producer at Loud Studios. He produced the EP for me and mixed and mastered it as well. But yeah, and so what happened? I sent it to him. He built the beats around kind of that concept that I gave him and those voice notes that I sent him. Sent it back to me. I recorded a demo at my house. I chopped up the beat to like fill in where I needed like longer time on a verse or on a chorus or whatever, a bridge or something, and then recorded it, sent it to him so he understood. We set up a studio date, went in, busted out there's a 4 track that he to a beat that he already had made that I found on his BeatStars that is kind of like that's part of the album. So then and I did the same thing. I made a demo to that. We went to the studio and I got all 4 tracks done in like 2.5 hours. So That's kind of my process. Is I like to be able to, because especially if I'm trying to make some project or a song about something, I'm much more like, let me do it on my own time. Let me get the beat. Let me make sure this is proper. Let me hear my voice. Let me hear it back. Let me see what can I change, and then like, okay, now go to the studio. Let's do it, because I want that product to be proper. I want it to sound like it was planned out. I don't want it to sound like I walked in there and just did it. And yeah, it sounds dope, but I want it to sound like, no, there's a thought process to this. Where if I'm just trying to like make a song, I went to again Loud Studios one time for some live stream thing, and I had the song, I had it recorded. I had to practice it a 1-2 time, and they're like, "Hey, you'll record a song." I was like, "Oh damn, I wasn't prepared for that." So, I just recorded that track and it came out good, right? So it's like where that was just more like I had written that one night when I was like sitting in bed, like high, and then I like just kind of left it a bit, and then they're like, "Yo," and I just pop it out. So it's kind of like that was a much more like quick, less thought involved, just kind of like putting something out there. So it really depends for me on like that what my creative process is. But yeah, that's kind of I create my flow pattern, and then kind of go from there.
Oh,
Fill in the words.
100%.
What I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you spoke about the EP for a bit too, and like how like that backstory came about, like it was like interesting to hear for a bit too, and to even speak more about it. It's gonna be coming, like it's gonna be dropping in a couple of days and all that. So tell me more about that, like further, and what like fans and like listeners like can expect in a way.
Yeah, so the EP is called The Time Is Now. It's got 4 tracks on it. The point of this EP, so back in November, I that individual I was just mentioning, that was a now an ex-girlfriend who I was with for 3 years. So we had a conversation about our relationship, and it kind of had sparked up some, like I said, some emotions with me. And essentially, I had realized I had to deal with other things that I hadn't dealt with yet, that I thought I had dealt with from my past. And I felt like it was starting to affect me in other areas of my life, and it was something I need to address for myself. And so, like I said, how I wrote out the project and everything. So I did that, and I recorded it, and it was just like the whole point of it is there's gonna be visuals to it, and it's supposed to be like a therapy session with myself essentially. And there's kind of a couple main themes in the EP. So the two things are myself as a emotional individual and myself as a racialized individual. And so what's wrong is kind of like a synopsis. It's the first track on the EP. And I'll just give you that one sound title, but it's kind of a synopsis, like a summary from a kind of almost like I'm telling you like events in a way, of these two themes. And then we go into the next 2 tracks, and they kind of more specifically talk about those two themes. And then the fourth track is kind of on a whole different vibe, and it's supposed to give this idea of like, okay, we were like, I'm done with this. I've talked about this, right? And so the visuals are going to represent some sort of like self, I guess, or therapy session, which we're actually getting ready to shoot like tomorrow night. So yeah, so that's kind of what the concept of that project is. It's just trying to say like, the time is now, because I have my Call Me Dewey album. I have all those singles that came out first, and that was the introduction to me in the game and like what I'm about, what I'm thinking, the kind of the lit side of me, the lyrical side, give you a whole wide perspective. And then I have For This, which is the single I just dropped like last week or whatever. And that is supposed to, give that's okay. I haven't dropped in 2.5 years. This is what's happening, and it's like, okay, the time is now. It's like, okay, it's the time to like fix this shit, like dead this shit, like get it out there, air it off your chest, deal with it, and that's gonna transition into the next LP, which is gonna be called It's Up to Me, and so that's gonna be like, it's up to me, and I'm talking about, so I've talked about myself as an individual, what I'm about, and Call Me Dewey. Now I've talked about myself as an individual in my emotional states and the things I'm going through over the last couple of years in my life. In The Time Is Now, and then Up to Me, it's like, hey, it's up to me to actually like take the steps to forward with this, and like do what I need to do and be the person who I know I can be. And then that will lead me into my hopefully my biggest album, when that comes out after the Up to Me LP. So that's kind of like the purpose of that. I want to make a new sound too. That was the other thing. I want to do something different. I want to take it a little bit away from what people have heard me, because I've been performing on my unreleased stuff. And kind of do something a little bit. It's still rap, it's still hip hop, 100%. It's always like that with me, but it's just almost like a little bit of alternative vibes into it, just to give something else. Hyber's a really good producer. He has a lot of things in the instrumentals that just provide like a lot of depth and dynamic to it, which I think work well for me given um how I go about utilizing my voice, and it just adds, a round picture and a round feeling, a wholesome kind of sound to it. So.
Oh, 100% too. And I know of one of the tracks too for this, there was like an interesting vibe to it because you've shot like I think the reel like at like I think at an area like where it's like snowing and all that too, and like it had like the mic down as well too, and then it was like interesting to hear too because there was like a lot of like backstories beyond it, just with the subject matter and like everything else too. So to even speak about that, like what was like that whole like inspiration and creative process, and is that also on the EP as well?
No, that song's on an EP. That's a single. But essentially that song's about the breakup I was just mentioning. So it was I didn't so like it was hard for me. So that the creative process came from is the person who created the beat. Shout out to my boy, Sad Boy Studios, Ace. He he just sent me that beat like sometimes December, and I hadn't gotten to it, and I just opened it up one day, like late December, and the second I heard it, it was like maybe 15 seconds in, and it was just like I stopped listening, I started writing, and it was just like it just kind of came out. Like it wasn't even to be honest with him, like I can't. It's like I'll say this, like it wasn't until after I had recorded and mixed the track, and then I'd sent it to other people, and they responded back to me, that I even started to take in what it was I was talking about, because like it was like those emotions were so, I guess, over the last like month, had been so like much for me to deal with, and I was trying to deal with it and being like, a troublesome time for me. It was like, I started like I remember I'm starting to tear up and listening to the car and stuff, because I'm like, fuck, like actually, like the way I said this is like hot, right? So, essentially, what happened is, I was dating this girl for 3 years. I thought it was a serious relationship. It wasn't not juvenile, and we had gone through some serious stuff. So she had 2 years ago, just like couple like February 9th, 2 years ago, she was on the way to my house, and she got in a head-on collision. She broke like every bone in her body. So, and then there was a recovery process to that. And, so we just had been through something so serious, such a early state, like matured our relationship. So it was a very serious thing. It was a good thing, she's an amazing person. We'll never say nothing bad about her. But, so we had been through a lot. So it was hard, when that ended, it was hard for me, because it was hard for me to understand, like why it just didn't feel right. So it just kind of flew out, and I was just trying to adjust like the ways that I felt about it without being disrespectful, but also like being like, letting it out, getting my emotions out. So, that's why like you hear me talk about like I never got to talk about the day that I cried, the night that you lied in that bed, couldn't open your eyes, you barely alive. Like that's the accident I'm talking about, right? And like it's different when you are looking down at someone you love, and like they literally look like they're dying, because they're so like broken and everything. It's not an easy thing to go through, and and then, just talking about some other things that, happened while we were like in and out of contact, I guess, for a couple of weeks after, because we had to like, give our stuff back, and like, deal with like shared, uh, you know, photo library or albums and notes and stuff, and just calendars and all that type of stuff. So, um, and yeah, I was just kind of trying to address the way I felt and like what actually happened, and like the visual that came out last night that was the last night, yeah, the last night that I posted, which is the main visual for um the music video, is a scene where I'm in the kitchen, with my homegirl who came and helped me out, but and she and I'm talking about, there's something different when you're in that kitchen contemplating if it's worth it, and it's like this is literally like how it went down, and it's like, we're like the first time the conversation came up, we're in her kitchen sitting and having this conversation about like she doesn't want it anymore and stuff like that. So it's like me like trying to talk to her, be like, like what's going on, like why, like I'm not just gonna, like not try to like fight for us type of thing. Like I'm not like, you obviously gonna do what you're gonna do at the end of the day, but like I'm gonna at least try to put a a fighting stand in for it, right? So um and yeah, and just like kind of reiterating that, like, and the emotions I felt in that situation, like what it like, and try to articulate it in a way that really will grasp people and maybe somebody can relate to and understand. Because part of it also is I realized, um, it's just after the holidays, Valentine's Day was coming up, and it passed now. So we're in that season where people are going through like lots of love, but they're also going through lots of heartbreak too. So I thought it was like, a good time. Once I had that track, I was like, yo, I'm gonna release this next month, right before the EP. Because I was like, it's a good time and it's a good segue into like kind of the very first song of the album, the EP, and kind of getting people engaged with like where I'm at right now before I come up with some of the more like lit and upbeat stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. What I like about this like conversation too, because like with the music, it is like a kind of like a therapy and all that too, just with the past releases and like even with the stuff going on right now, like as you just explained too. And when I heard about the question about Call Me Dewey on the Broken Playground interview that I like just like researched a little bit too, you talked about like how Dewey was like an alter ego in a sense too, with Khalil being like more of like the chill, like laid back person, and then Dewey being like the whole like outgoing, nonchalant type of person and all that too. For the creative process, was it more like a sense of therapy as well to like further from the different ideas that you were like going through, or was it like kind of different from all the other music in a sense?
For this or for Call Me Dewey?
For Call Me Dewey.
No, Call Me Dewey wasn't really a therapeutic based album because, to be honest, my writing skills since then have like got so much better that that's become more something that's prevalent more. That was just me trying to come up with, with zero knowledge in the game, never performed, trying to make music in my record all those tracks in my house, like in my home setup, um, trying to figure out, what is going to be, what's the story I want to tell, what's the thing I want to talk about. So, like you said, with the book, that first Broken Playground interview, talking about, Call Me Dewey, and it's my alter ego, the more lit side, and that was trying to just be like, and it was also me trying to tell the story of what, if from first time to Call Me Dewey, like the song names, I have, the story is essentially um what I think my rise in the game would be like from top to bottom, from start to finish. And it's like, first time is me saying, okay, I'm here, I do this. This isn't my first time. I've done this before, like I've been making music, like, I've been trying to do this thing. I'm not a newbie in this, but like I'm coming out. So I am like a freshman. And it's like, then fly away is kind of like, all right, like time to disengage, like take off type of thing. You know what I mean? Like time to like take those next steps and fly away. And then no replacement is like that more like lit, like, hey, like, like I'm doing this. Like there's nobody better than me. It's kind of like, pardon me, you have to have that mind state to like, you know what I'm saying? Like get what you where you need to be. And then peak is the middle track, because peak is like, hey, I'm at the peak and I'm talking about like how, people are gonna try to like take away from you and stuff like that. And people are gonna try, women and stuff are gonna try to distract you at your top. And then too much is the next track, because it's me trying to be like, oh, now you're at the top. It's like, oh, people start hating on you because you're too much, you're too much. And this is coming, a lot of these concepts come from my life experiences. As I've grown as an individual, and I've seen people change when you start to better yourself or find something in yourself. People start to be like, oh, I don't like that because it's not something that agrees with them, or they want to agree with because they don't find it benefits them anymore, right? For selfish reasons, and now they want to try and take away from you. So like that's what too much is. And I really tap into that one on the second verse about like that ideas of like racism and like how I feel about it in terms of like more socially how I grew up. And then tolerance is like a really subliminal track that really breaks down, at the superficial layer, you think I'm talking about a girl. The next layer, you realize, because I exposed it the second last bar of the song, of the second verse, I'm talking about weed. But realistically, what I'm actually talking about is I have tolerance to all these things that I've gone through, trying to get to the top. I'm not something I necessarily like. It's not necessarily something I want to have to deal with, but I have tolerance to it. I'm able to handle it. I'm able to manage it. I've matured. I've become somebody different now, like, but not different in the fact like, oh, you changed up, but just like you grew, right? You change with each step in a sense, right? You're not the same person every day after you go through a new experience. And so And then Call Me Dewey's the closeout track, just kind of making a sum of like, people are gonna like move this way on you because you're doing your own thing and they're gonna try and take from you. And then you gotta really talk and then why really? And then kind of giving like a very abstract like question through statement in a way, like of like why are people doing that? So and that's kind of like the storyline of that album and like how it and how it came about. So it wasn't really a therapy session. I think it was more or less at that point me just talking about what I was seeing happening around me and how I felt like people were treating me. But it wasn't really in a way because I was still learning what was happening. I was still young. I was still no, especially when I first started writing some of those songs. So it was, there was a lot I had to learn. I have learned since, but that was a really good starting point out where I needed to be for my entry to the game and what I thought would sound musically good and what would be interesting to somebody who was more interested in the deeper meanings behind things and storylines and not just like an album of songs that could be the latest songs, that type of thing, right?
Oh, 100% too. And yeah, just it's amazing to hear from your own perspective of what the songs like all talk about, like in a sense too. And just like furthering away from music for a bit too, but like, more so within like the real life experiences, like you're now like affiliated with NLMG New Legends music group. Like I know that you explained that you actually met them at an event like prior back into the like whole like signing thing too. So how did that come about and what was like that feeling like, once you were like affiliated with like NLMG and the experience, like being in that collective in a sense?
Yeah, like like you said, it came about. I met them at that the second time I ever performed, and I kept going to their showcases, and they were like, "Oh, like this guy kind of seems like committed," so they threw me in the group chat, and I just kind of been part of it ever since. And then as time's gone on, I've got more involved and started to make tracks with the team and stuff. But in terms of like how it felt, it felt good. It felt good to go out there, perform and somebody, early on be like, yeah, like we like what you do, like come roll with us, like let's try and do this thing together. That's always a good feeling. And then be able to, maintain those relationships and stay friends with these guys and build up the friendships and just, it become more like, people who I was working with to like working with my brothers and stuff like that. So that's it's been a great feeling. We've had a lot of fun together, we've been doing our thing. And yeah, shout out to the Legends Music Group. And I just think what we're doing right now was different. We're on a different speed. We're pushing up, we're upward punching, and we're not stopping, and we're, making the next step. So I think, just being part of something that people are seeing, people know the name, people know about, is really good feeling to be part of something that's moving forward and positive that other people can see and notice and want to be part of and want to support and, want to give shout out to because, it's like, the hard work, the effort that we've been putting in, there's payout to it. And,
Yeah.
seeing yourself progress through something, it's always a good feeling. It's a satisfying feeling to know because, like I said, people will tell you you can't. I was talking on the Call of Me Dewey project, like people are going to tell you like no or try to take that away from you or try to subliminally say things to you to make you second guess yourself. And when you have a solid group of people around you who are also experiencing that and like wanting to keep on the ball, it makes it so much easier just to keep pushing and like just keep writing and keep coming up with new concepts and just keep getting on stage and staying up late and waking up early and just going through all the bullshit of having to make it.
Yeah, no, 100% too, man. And to even like get back onto the whole idea of performing and all that too, because I know with performing, like going to different places, opening up for like a lot of people too, there has been like a lot of like advantages like in that sense too. So to even speak more about that progression of, performing like individually and all that, like how was that experience? Like was it have you felt like you've received like many benefits and like you've gained new friends from going to like these like certain areas and like even connecting with like different scenes there in a sense?
Oh yeah, 100% fam. I think that, the biggest thing is like when it comes to the performing aspect, I've got so much better. My ability now on stage to, engage with the crowd has improved. I think going to different cities and seeing what's out there has also given a pretty good, ideology. Like, you don't know everything. But I remember like when I first started coming outside, I was like, damn, like there's more like dope artists than I thought. And now as I've got better and I'm starting to feel like when I go on stage, I'm one of the better performances of the night. When we go on stage, we're one of the better performances of the night. You're starting to see like what's out there, what's not out there, and also what's missing, which is important because at the end of the day, this is a business. So it's like, hey, if there's something that's missing, like what can we do? Like what can we do? What can I do? What song can I make that's my style, that is me, but is going to be in this thing, this, maybe this little niche of this pocket that's missing that we can tap into to like, make that new sound that people might be like, yo, like that's crazy. So I think, just going out, being able to make those connections, see what's happening, get that constructive feedback from people who have been doing it. And also the biggest thing is, I like to say I'm like the outsider within the group because I'm just more of a kind of quiet person. I don't I kind of just sit back and enjoy, and I don't get too mixy in the situation. And I'm obviously I know what's happening. I'm part of the team, all that type of stuff, but I just kind of like chill. It's just more my personality. And so from the outside perspective, you can really see when you're out and everybody else is, talking to somebody, doing something else. And I'm watching the whole scene from like kind of like the seat that I'm sitting in. You really start to see like how people interact with certain people and how they behave outside their group is what I'm talking about. And it gives you a good grasp on why you hear certain music and the music that you're hearing that you like, that you're like, hey, that wasn't too bad, and what you need to do for yourself and what it is that people are really grasping onto when they're hearing something for the first time. And like what makes somebody like want to come up front or pull out their phone and record, and what makes somebody want to like go to the bar and get a drink. And you're starting to see those behaviors, and then also just how other industry people are and like how they behave and how they move, and like learning like who to keep at arm's length, because not necessarily somebody that you want problems with, but also who to like who maybe is somebody who's just like that was a friend or whatever, but it's an acquaintance now, it's all love, but it's it I really learned a lot about people now, meeting so many people and how people behave. You can like get a good sense now. I'm starting to get a really good sense now, like an individual, like from meeting them, which is for me something I value, because I like to know what I'm involved in almost before I'm involved in it, you know what I'm saying? So that I can, make the best decisions for myself and my artistry and my team and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, 100% too. And I feel like it does dictate to like whatever goes on in like the industries within like certain cities too. And I know with Toronto and the GTA, there is like a lot of like different opinions of like what's going on, from the OGs speaking their facts to the people like in the industry speaking their stuff, and like everything else too. And from your own perspective, how do you even like feel about the Toronto like Canadian like music scene right now at the moment? Do you feel that there should be some changes on the direction of where the Toronto GTA Canadian scene should go to, or do you ever feel like it's like fine the way it is right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a hard question because there's a lot of people have been saying for a minute Toronto artists hate each other, but then you go out to events and you dap everybody up. So it's like there is love, but it's like, how is there love? And sometimes I feel like we don't support ourselves enough when it comes to the pushing of content that allow, and we'd rather, like look at that situation that like just happened the other day. Uh, you know, Drake was like, "Oh, I'll get on a Doobie and press it collab," and then Doobie's story is, "I need 2 million for that plus loyalties," and it's like, I saw somebody post that and was like, yeah, but you got to understand it's different when like your homies and stuff have died doing this shit. It's not the same thing. And it's like, yo, okay, like that's true. But at the same time, it's like, what are you doing for the city as a whole if that collab happens? You know what I mean? And it's like you take the probably the one some of the two biggest underground artists and you put them on a stage with Drake. And what does that do for every subsequent artist below them, like us? Right? It opens doors. And it's these type of things where it's like when we forget about the love, we forget about the larger picture. And again, I'm not saying anything specifically about him because I don't know his situation. I don't know him, and I'm sure he has a reasoning for that. But from a larger scope, we see these same things happening at the individual levels where, artists don't want to help other artists out. Artists think that they're better than other artists, and so they treat them like they're lower. And you can see the way it is, right? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's too much kind of collaboration for like, hey, yo, like, let me get a bag off of you and then we'll work, opposed to like, let's make some art together and let's worry about the money when the money's there. Do you know what I'm saying? And let's
Yeah.
build that repertoire. And I think there's a lot of people also when it comes to like knowing the right people and getting on proper stages and the right spots. There's a lot of people that are taking advantage of artists and are trying to just make a quick buck off of them and not going to allow them to get to that next step, even though they deserve to be there, but they're paying their whatever to get on stage and then nobody's there because nobody brings out anybody, but because nobody has anybody to bring out. And it's like, it's frustrating being in that music scene where it's like, I have a godfather who's in the promotion scene for the club scene. And he's like, yeah, like when, if I'm promoting at a club, I'm bringing people out, right? But like when it comes to the music promotion, that's not the case. The artists have to bring the people out. And so the problem is if you can only bring 10 people out, that's not a lot. But if everybody could bring 10 people out, then you have 5 to 10 artists perform, you have a decent crowd, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is some people won't bring anybody out. They'll just pay the 200 bones and they don't bring anybody. And then there's nobody there. So it's then, okay, like this wasn't worth it. And you don't
Yeah.
feel like you're actually getting anywhere because you're paying to play, but you're not getting any response from it because there's nobody who's giving you the value for that pay. And it's really trying to find in this city, I find that balance of what are you paying for and what are you getting in return for it, and it's hard. So I think that's probably the biggest problem I would see right now, at least for me, how I look at it. Maybe I'm like completely saying some nonsense right now, but like, trying to make the way in which it's set up and where artists can get to stages is very difficult. It's not, it's not like a clear cut, like you have to do A or B type of thing. It's like you can't just pay to play because that's not the option, but you can't not pay to play because it's also not the option. You
Yeah.
have to make the certain connections, but
Yeah.
you have to do it in a specific way. So it's just like it's a thing that makes it hard to grow when
Yeah.
and that's why we're trying to be on tour with people like Roni and D12 and do these shows so we can get into those bigger audiences
Yeah.
and we can tap into people that might be like not necessarily in the scene or coming to these other events that will be like, oh, who are these guys, and kind of get
Yeah.
that reach out there, tap into existing artists. So fan bases. So yeah, that's the hardest part I would say in the scene
Yeah.
for me at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like there might be like a mentality thing going on, with like inflated egos and stuff like that too. Like I know, like I've had this guy Blitz 29 like on the on the podcast, and even like talked about the same thing, and like there
Yeah,
were like artists like in the past that talked about like how blogs are not supporting or like answering like DMs and all that. Like in a sense too, like you have to pay a certain amount to get your song posted, but then like an
yeah,
artist like Presso or Doovie get it for free, or they'll only talk about like controversy or like even like engineers like picking sides, producers as well too. Would
yeah.
you like agree with that, like in a sense too?
Um, yeah. I mean, I see it happen. Again, I stay out of it and I get very selective with who I work with because of these things, right? Because I'm not about that drama. I don't have time with it. I will just literally like not engage with it. Like essentially, like it's like if it starts, I just will like pretend like it didn't happen and just move on. I just like seriously, like I know I'm not in high school anymore, so it's just like I don't have time for that. So, but yeah, no, and I've always kind of felt like there's like almost like this weird like kind of like ceiling that kind of sits over everybody's head, and it's just this passed down like ignorance or like wanting to be for like people picking sides or this side or that side. Everybody's trying to like claim something, claim some sort of territory, claim this, claim that. And it's like it's just like, yo, just like make music and it'll get somewhere, you know what I mean? And but people have the things that they got to do, right? So I think, once we can get past that threshold, that barrier, I think you'll see a lot more come out of Toronto. Because like when I come to the scene and I see so many dope artists doing different types of things, not even just rap music, and you just like, there's so much here. And I just feel like there's artists who I know have been doing their thing for time and they should be farther than where they are. There's some of like the best artists I've seen, better than 90% of these fucks that I see every day posted online. Like, oh, what do you think of this track? Right. And I'm like, how does this guy have more clout? How does this guy have more money? How is he doing this so much more successfully than this artist who you can tell there's artistry here. Like this is a musician. This is somebody who like has a passion for this, like what they're doing. Yes, they want the money and they want this and they want that, but they're actually good at it. And it's like they've been doing this for X amount of years, and it's like this guy's been doing this for like 2, 3 years, and it's like, how is there such a difference? Right. And it's like that shouldn't be happening. The wrong people shouldn't be getting the money and the fame, because at the end of the day, those people, they're gonna cap easy because they have no longevity. They're just a business person, and once they get enough, of their foundation, they're gonna quit music and go start being a business person, which is completely cool. I get that. But those people shouldn't be given spotlight in our who's representing our industry, our Toronto hip hop industry, over the people who are really like making different, unique sounds. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, it's just frustrating. So it's just a hard mentality, because like, it's like, how do you, like for me, my biggest thing is like, it's hard, if you go to a show and you have a whole bunch of guys doing like hard trap shit or like yeet type stuff and stuff like that, and then I come in with like bars, it's like people like what the fuck, right? And it's like, because they don't appreciate the same, what they're appreciating is that same sound that they've been hearing like extremely over auto tune, the same flow pattern over and over again. Again, there's a time and place for that. I listen to that music too. I make a 1-2 track like that. There's a reasoning to do that, right? But it makes it hard when you're trying to be unique and everybody is trying to like else is trying to sound the same, but everybody's like, no, this is the sound you have to be. If you don't do this, or you're trying, it's just a mess, I find. So it makes it difficult.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely agree as well too in a way. And we just have like these like last few questions for a bit too. Do you ever
Yeah.
have any regrets in like your life overall, or do you feel like you regret like nothing in a sense?
Yeah, so yeah, I don't no, I don't really think. I'm trying to think. Like, I don't really think I have. If if I have one regret, I had like a friend, one friend that I made really good friends with from university, and and I kind of messed that friendship up. So outside of that, I kind of regret that. But outside of that, I try not to regret things. And the reason is something I try to do. Um, is I also try to put myself in positions where I won't regret things, or I won't have to say I'm sorry. And what I mean by that is like, I have worked on being able to be show humility. So I have no problem being like, you know what? I apologize. I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. But then because of that, and because I don't want to just, if you constantly keep saying I'm sorry, it just dilutes itself. So it's like, because you don't want to do that, you have to then begin pushing yourself in ways to make decisions that are um not gonna put you in situations where you're like, oh, I wish I didn't do that, or like, fuck, like I'm an idiot and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, I hurt that person or this or that, whatever the situation may be, right? And because of that, I find like I don't have too many regrets, because when I do make mistakes and stuff does go like, go left for me, it's not necessarily because I did it. Sometimes it is, but I can also understand that it's also because maybe I just didn't know, and it wasn't because of me being like ignorant or arrogant to something.
Yeah.
So then I take it as like, as opposed to like an L, as we say, I take it as a lesson, because there's a lot to learn in life from our mistakes. If we can't look at the things that we've done and then like look at ourselves and then correct it and be like, hey, like I made this mistake because I didn't know. Let me be better, and like, how can I move forward? So I would say no, I don't really regret things, because at the end of the day, a lot of things, even things that happen bad, they taught you something to get you where you are now. And if you're trying to push forward and you're showing that you're trying to push forward, and you can feel your own progress in life. I think, having those experiences as opposed to regrets of them is really healthy and beneficial. So I try not to regret things really as a whole. I think it's
Yeah.
kind of counterintuitive to moving forward, to be honest.
Yeah, no, 100% too. And with people like all around the world and all that, like they're trying to get into like music like every other day, like listening to it, like finding like whatever artists like that they could like listen to, people from Asia, people from Europe, people from like all over, like in a sense too. And
Yeah.
for someone like when they like stumble upon to your music and all that, like they want to find like, some of the best songs that they might want to like listen from that catalog in a way too. So if you have like free songs in your catalog, what would you recommend from that catalog for any person that might not heard about you like before in a sense, or that they would like to know you like in order to become like that fan or that big like listener in a way?
Yeah, I would say 3 songs would be off my Call Me Duty album. So the first one would be First Time. It's the opening track on the project. The next one would be Too Much. which would be I think the fifth track on the album, and then Tolerance, which is the sixth track on the album. And the reasoning is because first time is gonna kind of let you know about what I am and what I'm here to do, and like show you my lyrical capabilities. Too much is going to give you, that deeper sense of like what is Khalil, what is Dewey about, like what is on his mind, like what is his focus in terms of what he's trying to talk about sometimes, and racism and stuff like that, and problem systematic issues, and how people get judged because of those type of things. And then tolerance is, as I explained earlier, that like what I think my come up to the game is, it's kind of like that cap of like the storyline before I summarize it on Call Me Dewey, and just saying like, that I built up tolerance to the BS, built up tolerance to the way this thing is gonna be, all that type of stuff. And so I think those three give a good dynamic to who I am as an artist and how I create music, and like how I think, and like what my and like what I'm about as an individual realistically, and doing it in subliminal ways that still sound fun and jumpy and dancey, or like head vibes to, or just straight bars, but also there's more than just what you're hearing to and reading into. There's a story behind it, a purpose, an end goal.
Yeah, for sure. And aside from this EP that's going to be dropping in the next coming days, what do you have next in terms of like any other creative like projects and so forth? Like I know you're going to be touring with Roni, doing some stuff with like D12, and like also
Yeah.
releasing like other projects as well. Like I don't know if you have like any other like things going on as well.
Yeah, so in terms of music releasing, I have a project called Up to Me. It's gonna be coming out springtime, hoping late April. I'm just in the process of like finishing up the mix, to be honest. So I just kind of been lacking on that, but like it's the everything's recorded. I even got the cover art and all that type of stuff. Shoot a couple of videos for that. I have a project that I'm gonna have a huge collaborative project, which is gonna tap in with more people outside of NLMG. Obviously, NLMG is still gonna be on it. And that is going to be under the kind of directive of my Two-Face Gemini Collective, which is something I'm also starting to build up right now. I have a whole action plan to kind of go and talk and work in with the town of Halton Hills, town of Georgetown that I grew up, and try to create, start to help develop that music scene a little bit more. And yeah, that's I gotta get that in place. So that's kind of a creative thing that I'm gonna try to start on my own time. And then also I have a project that I took a step back from right when I started writing the Up to Me album back in August time. It's called Noir et Blanc. I'm not French, it just sounds better than black and white. And so what was saying the point of that album is for me to talk mainly about my mixed identity as an individual, and like how I felt about it. And that's kind of gonna be the cap to like that's gonna be like the cherry on top to like this little story that I'm telling you with Call Me Dewey, to the time is now, to Up to Me, to this. And it's like, okay, you're gonna see the whole thing from a larger perspective, you know what I'm saying? So I think that project's gonna hopefully come out in 2024, if not early 2025. Obviously, I'm gonna have, by end of April, I'm gonna have for this single, the EP that's coming out on Thursday, hopefully another single sometime in March, and then that EP, in springtime, late April, early May. And then I have that collaborative project that'll hopefully drop sometime, like late summer, like September time maybe. And then depending on how it works out, that Noir Blanc album will come out late this year. So lots down the pipeline for that. The TFGC stuff, we'll be working on that. We got a couple songs, some music videos. We'll be looking for some new stuff that I'm gonna try and do there, like some cipher-based stuff, and just like try to build up that name and that brand. It's going to be try to become a brand and representation of like equity and stuff like that, and equality, and giving people a chance. So just kind of that's kind of the stuff that's coming down. And then like you said, like we got a couple performances. I can't even like I have a whole shared note that I have with Ghost and Beans that I gotta check every now and
Yeah.
then, because stuff just constantly getting added to
Yeah.
it. So and not every I don't go to every show that we book or that we that we get. So sometimes I do my own stuff, or I just I take the day, I stay at home, I gotta work or whatever. So
Yeah.
but yeah, so we have I think so next weekend is Young Tour in London at Club Fuego, and then we have D12 March 6th in Barry, and then Roadrunner again back in London at Club Fuego, and then early April we're on tour with Roni, and I think we got a couple other things in the works. I just got a message back from someone else, so there's going to be more shows coming up in March time for sure. And then I think the team is trying to work on getting a 1-2 set going together. So plus everybody else has got their own individual things that they're doing in shows. So make sure you tap into the NLNG promo page and check in all our profiles and see what everybody's doing, and tap in, buy some tickets, come out, support, stream our music. Represent. We're doing big things, and this year is going to be our, we're not even saying this is our year. This is our year to make our subsequent years type of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's like, it's not even like this is our year now. Like we haven't. This is just the tip of the iceberg type of thing. So
yeah, no, 100%. And do you have any closing remarks you'd like to say, on where can they like follow you like on social media?
yeah, so you can find me on all social media at The Real Dewey, TheRealDuey. You can find all my music on all streaming services under Khalil, Khalil.
All right, all right. So Khalil, thank you for coming back, for coming by like on the podcast for the very first time,
Yeah,
like for the live stream thing too. We'll probably do like an
yeah,
in-person one like very soon and all that too. So we'll definitely
100%.
get that like sorted out like for a bit too. But yo, this is Josh, also known as Yashu, with Khalil, episode 75, the live stream edition. Once we're done, like it'll be out on all platforms like immediately on all that with YouTube, and then proceedingly with Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So definitely watch it, like tap in. If you already tapped in earlier, that's great to hear more about the story of Khalil and with everything else going on. And yeah, definitely check out the EP as well too, and like with every other thing going on. So that's all I could say right now.
Yeah, yo, shout out Lenza Yashu. Thank you very much for bringing me through. I appreciate it. It was a good interview, and yes, for sure, we're gonna tap in soon. And like I said, February 22nd, Thursday at 7 p.m. The time is now. EP drops. Ticket tap in. It's gonna be out everywhere. Check my link in my bio. I'll be there.
All right, likewise, man. Yo, episode 75 signing off.